Welcome back to the Chats and Recaps podcast with your host, Sammy.
And Mimi. We're glad you joined us today. So let's get into it.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you never miss an upload.
Happy Friday. Welcome to another podcast. And today's broadcast is brought to you by Rage.
By the Nightmare House Mistakes.
Today's podcast is brought to you by anger and frustration because, and let me explain. So the podcast, obviously you clicked on it because we're talking about first-time home buyer mistakes that you want to avoid. And I'm sure there's lots of first-time home buyers out there who are probably looking at or wanting to buy their first home. And just to preface this, we are in the state of Florida, so laws on real estate obviously vary from state to state. So everything that we're going to be talking about is going to be coming from the perspective of state of Florida, though I do firmly believe that these practices should happen all over the country. So I don't know if Florida is just one of the stricter states or has better protective laws for buyers, but yeah, that's just a preface. So everything is coming from perspective of state of Florida, from FREC, which is the Florida Real Estate Commission. And then also there are things that fall under the DBPR.
So a lot of stuff that we'll be talking about will be federal as well. And federal is like every state.
Also, we're not professionals in the
mortgage
as far as mortgages go, or like home inspections or anything. So we're not professionals in that field. However, I am qualified in real estate. And you have taken classes under someone who taught you about like the home buying process and like home flipping and stuff like that. So she kind of comes at it more of the perspective of somebody who kind of like flips homes, of like an investor mindset. And I come at it more of the side of like a real estate agent and how, I guess, real estate agents should practice and like things like that.
Correct.
So that's just
But just to be firm, she has her license in real estate. She's just not practicing it.
Yes, I'm not currently active or practicing right now. So we were inspired to do this podcast because YouTube has been recommending to me for like the longest time this video titled, "We Need Help Scammed Into Buying a House That Is Ruining Our Lives." And I've always just kind of like kept skimming over it, but for some reason it keeps popping up to me. I don't know why, because I don't look up videos on YouTube that are about like houses and stuff like that, so it just seems so random. And I've just been ignoring it for the longest time. And then we were having some conversations about like builders and homes and stuff like that, and a lot of bad experiences that people have had with new homes. And then all of a sudden this video popped back into my mind. I was like, hey, that reminds me of this video I keep seeing on YouTube. I wonder if it's about someone who purchased a new home and like it's a nightmare. Needless to say, that is not at all what the video was about. So we both sat in here and watched the video together. And as I watched the video, I got more and more and more angry and frustrated as I was watching her tell the story about her home. This is a YouTuber named Kyla, and she does have a channel on YouTube. So if you want to go watch the video for yourself, I will link the video in the description in case you just want to watch and hear her whole story. If you're a first-time home buyer or you're thinking of buying a home or anything, please watch her video because unfortunately, this is something that happens to people. And I just feel like, you know, like she said in her video, she wants to get her story out there so that people hear it and that people are aware of this, because unfortunately, and I hate to say this as somebody who practices real estate, that unfortunately you can't just trust that every professional out there has your best interest at heart.
Correct.
Because unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there who like to give business and bad reputations to certain things and connotations. And there's people out there that practice unethically, and they're just in it for themselves. And they see somebody who doesn't know the first thing about buying a house or know the first thing about anything, and they see you as somebody who is gullible, who they are going to make a quick buck off of. Unfortunately, that is exactly what happened to her in the video. And it just frustrated both of us to no end. And so we just felt that we should come on and just kind of talk a little bit about this and share from our perspective kind of some takeaways from her video, some red flags and things to look out for, and how you can protect yourself as a first-time home buyer, or even if you're not a first-time home buyer buying your second or third home or whatever it may be.
Anybody could be scammed.
Anybody can be scammed at any time. So just hopefully this will help you kind of have a better perspective when you're going into buying your first home, what to look out for, and things like that. And hopefully this will help you or somebody else.
Now, I do just want to say that when I read the title of this video, the first thing that I thought was, man, this must have been an idiot. Like, how can you get scammed when you're buying a home? That's like,
I know.
How? But after watching the video, I took all those words back and I thought, oh my God, I cannot believe that this realtor or real estate agent is out there still practicing.
I know. It was like, ugh. So yeah, it made me so mad as I was listening to it.
I was mad for her. And it just pissed me off. Just pissed me off completely.
Yeah, it really, really.
I felt bad for her because, first off, let me just say, I don't know about other states, but I do know that in the state of Florida, they do have classes for first-time home buyers that are free for you to sign up and learn the process of purchasing a home. Also, when you take those classes, it goes to credits towards when you're purchasing or looking for a loan, because a bank will look at you better if you've done these classes. These classes are going to teach you like things to avoid, mistakes, what realtors are supposed to do or real estate agents are supposed to do in helping you, how to look for a good deal, the process, step-by-step processes that you have to take to purchase your home. And it's a great class to take, and I recommend, if you know nothing about purchasing a home, take those classes. They're free. And again, it goes as credit towards your loan. So, I mean, not in money-wise credits, they'll just look at you as a more responsible borrower.
Yeah, so, like adding to your credit score.
Correct.
Kind of think of it like that, like a more like
well, not to your credit
risk.
Score, but it's
I'm just describing it as a similarity.
Okay, yeah, because these classes are going to teach you what the banks are looking for in your credit scores, how to keep your credit clean, all the steps that you're going to be going through. It kind of walks you through the whole process. So that way, when you do go out there and you are looking for a home, you're going to know and you'll be more aware of red flags.
Yeah.
So
definitely. And to go along with that, one of the first things in the video when she's talking about like her process of looking for a home and everything like that. So in her story, from what it sounds like, she just reached out to the realtor who was selling the home. And I'm saying realtor because she said realtor. Now, I don't know if this practicing agent was actually a realtor or not. Right. And there actually is a difference between a realtor and a real estate agent. So I know a lot of people kind of use them interchangeably, but there is a big difference between the two. A real estate agent is someone who has just passed all of the state requirements and earned a real estate license to practice real estate in that state. However, a realtor is somebody who has actually joined the National Association of Realtors, NAR, which earns them the title of realtor. When you become a realtor, you go into this class and you are basically taught all of the code of ethics that are involved in being a realtor. And it's just generally, it's like an extra,
you're held to higher
like an
standards.
extra credential added on top of your real estate license. And you are held to a higher standard and by a higher code of ethics than maybe a average real estate agent would, although everybody should be handling ethically. A realtor specifically goes in with that intent that they are going to be following this very strict set of ethics. And that is how they handle buyers and sellers and things like that, and just making sure that they are always working for the best interest of the buyer and the seller. Their sole obligation is to make sure that both parties are protected in the transaction. So there is a difference. There's a lot of additional classes and courses and things that realtors take and that learn about. And also, typically being a realtor, you are a little bit more involved in the state, in your community, and you are always called upon to make sure that laws and things are being enacted to protect buyers and sellers and things like that. So that's pretty much the difference between the two. Not saying that as a real estate agent, you can't be involved, but as a realtor, there's those extra kind of set of obligations that come along with it.
To do that, you do have to take courses.
Yes.
And then those courses are going to hold you to that higher standard.
Correct. You have to take an oath and everything. It's like a whole big thing. Yes. I know because I went through the realtor process.
Fee.
Correct. You also pay a yearly fee.
Mm-hmm.
That goes into the association, and pretty much that all just, it's supposed to go back into the community,
right?
And things like that, and kind of helping again with laws and stepping up when injustices happen as far as real estate goes.
Right.
They also actually play a big role in like mortgages and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime there's something going on, like I know there's a lot of stuff they were doing with COVID and everything to help people who were like going into foreclosure and stuff like that, to help, work things out for these homeowners and stuff. So yeah, that's what the Realtor Association is. So if you're looking for a real estate agent and you see realtor under their thing, you cannot put realtor unless you're actually in the association.
Correct.
So you can look out for that, like when you're looking for an agent and you just see the realtor, it's like, oh, so they've gone through this, additional.
They can actually be fined if
you can.
representing
you cannot
themselves
misrepresent
as a realtor without being part of that association.
Correct. You cannot misrepresent yourself.
If they're reported that they're using realtor and they're not even part of it, they can be fined.
Yeah. So now that I've explained the difference between a realtor and a real estate agent, one of my first things when I was watching her video, like I said, she reached out directly to the agent who was the seller's agent listing the house for sale.
That's another thing. She didn't really say if it was the seller's agent. She just reached out to the agent that was associated with the house that was on a certain...
The agent associated with the house is the seller's agent.
Yeah, it was on a certain app,
right?
Or
when a
website.
Regardless of where the home was posted, if the agent is appearing underneath that home, unless it is the buyer's agent, meaning you are working with somebody, maybe they're sending you listings or you're looking at it through a buyer's agent site, there may be homes on there that maybe they are not directly doing, but they're just a general buyer's agent, and they just, usually it's for any home under their listing, under their brokerage. So like, for example, when I worked under a brokerage, all of the homes under our brokerage, if I gave somebody like my link or anything and they went to the website, any home they looked at under that brokerage, my name would appear. It sounded like she was looking at this home on like Zillow or something like that. So the agent that you're seeing under the home, like on Zillow, I think there's another website called like
sometimes
realtor.com.
Sometimes they give you like different realtors.
That's
under
the seller's
that one
agent.
Home.
Yes, that's the seller's agent.
So I just want to say another thing. Whenever you're talking to a real estate agent or realtor who is representing the seller, they're not in your best interest.
I wouldn't say that.
I do say that because
it's not true. Because you are supposed to
you're supposed to help, but not
both parties'
all of them
interests.
will. Because in the end, you should be covering yourself. Like, you should have your own realtor looking, or real estate agent looking for a home.
Yes,
or
I was gonna say watching
the house.
I was gonna say watching her video. The first thing I said that probably would have helped her, not probably, but
she would have had her own
would
agent.
likely have saved her from this whole thing happening, is had she, instead of searching for the house on her own, not saying that you can't search for houses on your own, but if you are a buyer, get an agent, get a real estate agent, get a realtor, get somebody to represent you, because it doesn't cost you anything. As the buyer, it costs you $0 to get an agent. The agent earns the commission from the sale of the home, which is paid by the seller.
The seller's paying the agent cost.
In certain circumstances, a seller will try to split the agent fee with the buyer. 99% of the time, that does not happen, and most buyers don't want to have to pay for that fee. So 99% of the time, it doesn't cost you anything.
And they're representing you
to represent you,
and they're going to represent you. They're going to guide you the best way they can, because of course they want to make that commission, and two, they're in the best interest of you. So, I mean, some agents don't listen, because I remember when I was first shopping for a house, here in Florida, and I kept telling them that I didn't want a certain zip code. I think it was like 32808 or something like that. Anyway, I kept telling her I didn't want anything in that area or in that zip code or anywhere in that area. And yet she kept taking me to houses in that area. Yeah. And it was just so frustrating. So I fired her.
Yes.
I fired her.
Well, you can fire your agent if it's not working out.
Yeah, I had to fire her. I had to let her go because she wasn't listening. And I'm sorry, but when you're looking for an agent, make sure they're listening to you. Because if they take you to a couple of houses that you specifically say you did not want, and they keep taking you, get rid of them.
And
because they're not listening.
At the end of the day, you are hiring this person to do something for you. So it's important, you know, some people like will interview a couple of agents before they find the one that kind of like works best with them. So you can talk to multiple agents, just kind of talk to them, get a feel for them, see, you know, how they listen to you and everything before you end up picking the one person that you're going to go with. But yeah, get yourself an agent if you're a buyer, especially a first-time home buyer and, you know, you don't know the process and everything like that. Still make sure you get an agent. Even now, like not practicing, I would still use an agent.
Correct.
Although I have my knowledge, but you know.
I will always use an agent whenever possible. And then number 2, nobody understands the mumble jumbles of these contracts.
Yeah.
Get a lawyer. If you can afford a lawyer, get a lawyer, because a real estate lawyer, because they're going to protect you and they're going to make sure if anything should happen, you're going to be protected by them. So, I mean, I didn't use a lawyer when I bought a house.
Well, you can get a real estate lawyer if you're not using you're not using an agent. You can hire a lawyer. The only thing is you don't get as many benefits as you do having an agent, because the lawyer is literally just going to look over a contract for you pretty much. But the agent sees you through the whole process, start to finish.
But the combo together, powerful.
Here's the thing. If you have an agent, and you have a good agent with a good firm, you shouldn't need a lawyer, because when I worked in a brokerage, we had our own real estate lawyer. So should anything happen, that real estate agent should be able to get you with a lawyer.
But see, that's the difference. It depends what brokerage you're with.
That's what I'm saying. Because like, make sure you're using a good brokerage.
Not all brokerage are going to have real estate lawyers. They're going to say, well, if you would like a real estate lawyer, we can go ahead and recommend some to you. But they don't have them right there. And I think Century 21, I think, was one of the ones who has real estate lawyers on premises, certain premises.
I think,
because not all.
I think Century 21, Coldwell Banker, and there's another, and Remax, and there's like another big one. A lot of the big ones have their own real estate lawyers.
They do have a real estate lawyer there if you need one. That is extra cost. That is not free.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the term buyer beware?
Yes.
There's a reason they use the term buyer beware, primarily when you're dealing with a for sale by owner, meaning as somebody who's like not using an agent or anything like that. It's called buyer beware. And I feel like in her video, she was pretty much in like a buyer beware situation. You have to be so careful.
Yeah.
And this is the case where a lawyer would have definitely been needed on her end, because she didn't have an agent or anything like that. But so a little bit more into the story, aside from, obviously, I would have started by saying get a real estate agent, but after that, she was talking about how she saw the house, she was interested in the house, they wanted to buy the house, they were really wanted to get out of their apartment, so I guess they were kind of rushing into getting this new house. So
before her lease went up.
So there were a lot of like red flags popping up here and there. So what happened was she was interested in this house, and she was approved, obviously, for a mortgage on this home. And when talking to the real estate agent after putting in an offer, the offer was accepted. So after an offer is accepted on a home, you have a certain amount of time up until the closing date to have an inspection done of the house. Now, when she initially had that offer accepted, a disclosure was given to her for the home. The disclosure is something that is filled out by the seller, that basically they have to disclose any known latent defects on the home. Like latent defect is anything in the home that would be considered maybe a detractor from a buyer buying the home, or that may cause like any sort of like value decrease or anything in the home. So like foundation issues, leaking, mold, all that kind of stuff. The seller does have to disclose these things to the buyer if they're aware of them. Now, when she received the disclosure, the seller notated on the disclosure that there were no issues with mold, there were no issues with flooding. The only thing marked on the disclosure was that they stated when it rains heavily, that water will stand in the backyard.
That's it.
That was it. That was all they put on there. When asked if there were issues with the roof, they said no issues with the roof. Are there any issues with leaking? No, there's no issues with leaking. Are they aware if there's any mold or anything present in the building? They said no. So keep that in mind. Now, when talking to the agent about getting the inspection done, this was the second red flag. The agent gave her one suggestion and told her to use this one inspector, that he's really great, that he's a friend of hers.
Red flag.
And that was the only inspector that she suggested.
Never use a friend
to her
of a realtor for home inspections. Ever. I don't even care if it's your agent.
Yeah, this raised a huge red flag to me, because in my practicing as a real estate agent, we are always told we should never suggest just one person to a buyer or a seller or anything. We should just never suggest one person, because when you suggest one person, you're pretty much backing and endorsing that person. And should anything go wrong, like if that inspector does something wrong, or let's say we suggest like a mortgage or something, and like something happens with the mortgage and we endorse that person, they can come after you for pretty much like backing and endorsing them, because you are a professional. Correct. As a real estate agent license holder, you are a professional.
Correct.
So that means that you have a lot of knowledge about things that these buyers don't have. That's why they're coming to you. You're a professional. You are supposed to be that set of eyes for them. You're supposed to be the guidance. You're supposed to be looking out for them. That's why this agent pissed me off so bad.
I know.
She gave her the one suggestion, and obviously the inspector that was given to her, I guess, had some kind of tie or something with the realtor.
Yeah.
When they did the inspection, they completely lied about everything. They did not take pictures of any of the problem issues. They didn't take good pictures. A lot of them, they didn't even take pictures of certain things. And
like one of the pictures, I think she said he went into the attic and took pictures of boxes.
Yeah, of boxes. Like they couldn't, apparently, I guess the attic was so cluttered they couldn't even take pictures of like the whole attic.
But yeah,
and
he came back to get up there.
Came back to them and told them that everything was great. There was nothing wrong with the house except for one thing, which is that the house didn't have storm grates. What do you call it? Storm gutters.
Yes.
The house did not have gutters, which, if you don't know, if your home doesn't have gutters on it to filter the water away from the house, over time with rain and everything, it will build up and it will go under the foundation, and it will cause your foundation to sink, which will cause major issues down the road. So if you're like a new home buyer, or you're buying a home that doesn't have shutters, just be aware that this can happen, especially if you're somewhere where it rains a lot.
Now, I do want to point out that in the state of Florida, the house does not have to have gutters. That is something that a buyer or seller would put on the house on their own acquaintances. They do not, by law, have to have it on the homes. No. Now, in other states, by law, it has to be. Like in Jersey, when we lived in Jersey, the homes cannot be sold or built without gutters.
Right.
But here in Florida, which when we were purchasing the home, we were like, what? It's not what?
Yeah, it's not required.
If you do buy a new builder's home and they're building the home, those are added expenses.
This is really interesting to me, knowing that over time it will cause foundational issues. Why would it not be required? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me.
It should be required. But
it doesn't make any sense to me. So at this point in the video, as I'm listening to her story about her process of buying the home, like, okay, so she hasn't done really anything wrong, other than, obviously at the beginning, having a representation on her side. She hasn't done anything wrong, but trust what this professional is telling her. And even
I don't call her professional.
Well, and for the sake of the story, to her, she was a professional.
She's
holding a license. She's holding a license. Agents. She's a professional. So, she's trusting the word of the professional, as most people would do. And this inspector, she gets the house inspected. So, that was something she did right as well. The inspector inspected the house, told her there's nothing wrong. So again, even if you have like some doubts in your head, but you're a first-time home buyer, you don't know the first thing about a house, and an inspector is telling you everything is fine, you're going to believe the inspector, because again,
they have to make a report.
The inspector is a professional.
They have to make a report.
Exactly.
Mind you, she paid that inspector.
Yeah, and inspectors aren't cheap.
No, they're not. The cheapest, I think
for
here
her,
in
it was
Florida,
probably like $800.
I think that's what she said, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't want to be like quoted on this, but I think she said it was around $800 and something that it cost for that inspection. Now, mind you, and this is something that we weren't thinking about it as we were watching the video, but as we sat here getting ready for this podcast, we started thinking, wait a minute, Sam started thinking, wait a minute, when an inspection is done, that inspection is also appraising the price of the home.
Correct.
Therefore, the home appraised for the value of that neighborhood. Mind you, the home is not even worth the value
nowhere
of
near
that neighborhood. So what did you find?
Oh, so let's talk about mortgage fraud. Mortgage fraud, a crime in which the intent is to materially misrepresent or omit information on a mortgage loan application to obtain a loan or to obtain a larger loan than would have been obtained had the lender or borrower known the truth. In this case, the real estate agent probably wanting to make their commission off of what they were pricing the home at
and walk away with money in
giving
their pocket.
the seller money to pocket in their pocket so they could go buy an actual good home. Had this inspector come in and appraise the home probably at whatever value they were selling it for, which I believe was over $100,000 for this home. And this is mortgage fraud. If you omit information, which there's obviously a lot of stuff that he had to have seen when he was looking at the home that none of it was notated. He purposefully misinformed and defrauded that by saying the house was valued at more than what it was and saying that it had no issues with it other than that it needed some quote storm gutters on it because it might cause issues with the foundation later. With a foundation that was already completely sunken.
Correct.
And caused this mortgage loan to then be approved, which is mortgage fraud. You're misrepresenting the value of a home to be able to get it to be sold. And it's a mortgage fraud because they are using a mortgage to buy the home. They're not buying this home cash. A mortgage is relying on this appraisal.
Correct.
Because why would you give someone $100 and something thousand for a home that's not worth anywhere near that?
The bank is not going to give you a loan if after the inspection it does not meet that appraisal. That's what the inspection is for.
Unless
the inspection and appraisal is to let the bank know, okay, this house is in great condition. It's worth the value they're selling it for. And therefore, you can move forward with your loan process. That's fraud.
Which led to the closing of this home because everything came back good with the inspection. So they were all good. That probably made the mortgage company happy, which allowed them to finalize their loan, which gave them the money to then go to their closing. Now, after the inspection, the couple buying the home did say that some of the rugs were really nasty and they wanted those rugs to be cleaned by the time they moved into the home. Now, at this point, they didn't know why the rugs were nasty. They just knew that they were nasty. And because, I guess it hadn't been raining in this time period or anything, so they weren't aware that the house flooded and all that. They didn't know that that was what was causing the damage to the rugs. But again, an inspector should have known this when he was looking at the house.
Correct.
Anyway, because there were other signs of water damage in the home, but that's besides the point. So they, wanted these rugs to be cleaned. I guess it was stated that they were going to have the rugs and everything in the house professionally cleaned before they moved in.
But I think it was a verbal statement, not a written.
Yeah, and that's why I was going to say, here's another thing. Closing for a home. If you're a first-time home buyer, closing for a home is not the same as leasing an apartment. You can go see an apartment and then sign a paper to lease the apartment. Everything goes through, and then, they still have it professionally cleaned. Then you move into the apartment, whatever. Closing a home is not the same thing. When you go to that closing, you're going to closing and signing the paper saying that everything in that contract is met and that you are buying the home pretty much like as it is.
Correct.
So
they're not obligated to, in some part.
Now, here's the thing.
If you're purchasing a home as an investor, and that was an investment property, you're pretty much got to get rid of everything that's in there. When you're purchasing another home and you're closing, they do have to remove all furniture. They have to leave the house empty.
The most common contract is an as is.
Don't know.
The most common contract is a buying as is contract. That's the one that you really see the most of. I very rarely saw anything other than an as is. If you're a buyer and your real estate agent is sending you the papers for you to sign to put in your offer on the home, the contract, usually it says at the top that it's like a as is contract. So that means that you're buying the house as is. They're not fixing anything.
Correct.
And it's important as the buyer, even though, you should be able to trust your agent, but still you should always read everything yourself.
Yes.
Read through the documents because this document breaks down everything regarding the home, like what condition you're getting it in, what things are going to be remaining in the home, what things are not going to be there when you move in. So sometimes like when people sell homes, they'll put like as is and then it'll say washer and dryer are included.
Right.
Or it'll say like certain things.
Or like the curtain rods.
Yeah, like curtain rods will stay there or whatever.
Well, pretty much anything bolted to the home or to the walls or to the floor or to the ceiling must remain on the property. If you do remove the one that's there, you must replace it with something similar, because you cannot leave anything that's bolted or it belongs to the home. So whatever you do that's a permanent fixture. Permanent fixtures are to be remaining in the homes.
Correct.
You cannot take that unless you replace it.
Right. If you're a buyer and you're wondering, if I'm looking at a house, how do I know what's the permanent fixture that is going to stay there when I leave and what's not a permanent fixture? Like, permanent fixture means that if it were removed, there would be a clearly visible evidence that something was removed from that spot. So like, let's say you have a regular bookshelf. Obviously, regular bookshelf, not a fixture. You move it, it's whatever.
But if you have it built in.
Now, if they have that bookshelf like fully bolted into the wall and it is now a part of the wall, that is now a permanent fixture. Cannot be removed.
I mean, they can take it, but they can say, yes, this is bolted.
Or they have to put in the contract.
When I do take it, you're not going to know something's missing. Then you can take it. And the reason that I say this is because
has to be specified in the contract.
Correct. It does have to be specified in the contract. It also has to be specified in the contract that, because also when we purchased the home, our first home here in Florida, there was like garbage all over the freaking house. But in the contract we stated, because it would have costed us about $1,000 to clean out that house. That's not an added cost that I wanted to take out of pocket. So my real estate, she was a realtor. She put in that the home will be cleared and cleaned out.
Yes.
Of everything.
But what did she do
before closing?
Put it in the contract.
In the contract.
Exactly.
So if anything was left behind, which I kind of wish they left behind the Coca-Cola table and chairs, but you
could have put, please leave Coca-Cola table and chairs.
I know, right? But they did clean out the house, and she did state to me, if you come to the house after closing, anything in there, let me know, and I will go after the seller.
Right.
Now, that's a realtor.
At that point, what you would do is get it cleaned yourself and then charge them the cost of whatever it cost you to clean it.
Now, that was a realtor.
But yeah, the main point to take away,
I had her card.
Right? The main point to take away is that when you are going through your as-is contract, read everything through thoroughly.
Correct.
There is a section where they will notate anything that is supposed to be remaining with the house. And then there's also an option for you to write in there anything that you are wanting them to leave behind in the home.
Correct.
Because once it is sent to the seller, should they accept your offer, your monetary offer on the home, you can then kind of like negotiate. And let's say you put in there, I want you to leave the, like, what's something that you might ask someone to leave? Chandelier. Like, let's say there's a really nice chandelier in the house and you're like, I would like that to stay and be included. I don't want it to be replaced with anything else. I want the chandelier that is there as is. You put in the contract, okay, everything is good, and plus you don't see chandeliers written on there that is going to stay in the home.
Correct.
You just write, okay, I want to make sure that I'm not losing this chandelier when I buy the home, because maybe that is a buying point for you in the house. So you would write it on the contract, submit your offer to the seller. If the offer accepts, then that means that they have agreed that they're going to go ahead and leave that chandelier behind. Or let's say that they don't want to leave it. They might come back to you and say, everything is good, except we're not going to leave that chandelier. It's going to be replaced with a minimal chandelier. And then at that point, should you choose to negotiate further, you can do so.
Correct.
Anyway, so that's the point of looking through your contract and, making sure that everything is written. Everything must be written in that contract. If it is not written, then in the end, you're going to be screwed, because should you try to go after the seller, they're not going to go by word of mouth. They're going to go by what's written on that document. So you got to make sure that it's written down.
Now, the reason we get into that is because when she was talking about the carpeting, she did ask, will the seller replace the carpeting before closing? The real estate agent, or as she called her, the realtor, said no.
That it would be professionally
will not replace the carpeting, but they will professionally clean the carpeting and the home. Okay. That's fine that the realtor, how she said realtor, but it's really realtor. It's fine that the realtor said that to her, but it was not written in the contract. So she couldn't go after them because after closing, carpets were not clean. They were still disgusting and nasty. Disgusting and nasty.
But here's the thing.
I forgot how to say disgusting.
Here's the thing. She did her final walkthrough
Yes.
Of the home, noticed that the carpets and everything were still dirty, asked the realtor about it, and the realtor said, oh, it's fine, that after closing they were gonna go get it professionally
Nobody
cleaned.
does anything after closing.
After closing, that house is yours.
It's done.
Whoever previously owned it, all ties are cut. When you sign that closing paperwork, that means everything is said and done. The keys are yours. You literally walk in.
You cannot go after them.
Nobody is going to be going in and fixing anything or cleaning anything when you're buying a home. Now, if you're leasing, that's a different story.
Right.
You can sign a lease and have these things that are going to be done, and they can still do it after you sign the lease.
Depending on what kind of lease option you have.
Well, yeah, depending. But in most cases, you can have a lease and they'll still go in and be able to change or fix certain things. However, when you're buying a home on closing, it's said and done. However, the condition the house is when you sign those papers is how it stays.
Nobody's going in there after.
Let's say she had it written in the contract that those carpets were to be cleaned. Mm-hmm. She goes to the house after closing, those carpets aren't clean. Now she can have someone professionally come out and she can go after the seller. The seller will have to pay for whatever it costs to get those carpets professionally cleaned. In her case, this is not what happened.
Right. Now, we're going to get to why those carpets were disgusting.
Yeah, so I don't know if her home is in a flood zone. I am assuming that probably the reason why her house was flooding is because, like she stated, the business behind them never installed a proper drainage system. And so all of the water was flooding into the community behind the business. It was like some huge, giant business.
Yes.
And
they were like a trucking.
Yeah, they were dumping tons and tons of water and it was going into everybody's house. However, because hers was on the lowest terrain point in the neighborhood and she already at this point, the house had a sunken foundation, all of the water was funneling right into their backyard and directly into their house.
Their home.
So the very first time it rained, the house was flooding. And at this point, this is why I would say you should watch the video because I have never seen anything so crazy with flooding in a home. It was insane.
Just from rain. Like, oh my gosh.
I was like, as I was watching it, I was just like imagining being in her shoes and dealing with that. And she was, she was like being crazy, like, she was like crying and everything. She's like, oh my God, like this is happening. I was like, oh my God, I don't even know how I would handle that situation. I'd probably be just like her.
The whole thing happening.
I probably would have reacted like her, maybe worse than her. Because to me, she was a little bit more put together than I would have been had I been in that situation.
Yeah, but remember, before she started recording, we don't know what kind of hysteria she was in.
Once you start
recording, hysterical. You start calming down a little bit. I mean, you're still upset, but you start calming down a little bit because now you're just focusing on your video and you're focusing on what you need to say on your video while you're like recording this phenomenon that's happening in a home that you just purchased and thought you were going to be in for like ever. And I don't know. I don't know what I would have done, to be honest.
Yeah.
I have no clue.
She was saying that she was kind of like she couldn't just relist the home on the market.
She can't.
So it sounded like maybe she had a specific type. I don't know if she had a specific type of loan. Like how you got the FHA loan and then the FHA requires
the reason she said that she couldn't relist the home back on the market is because she needs to tell them the conditions that this home is in because now she knows these conditions and she can't just go and put it on the market. She didn't want to do that to somebody else like they did to her.
Because she actually has a conscience.
If she does put it back on the market, which I think she did. She put it for a short sale. If she does put it back on the market, then it's going to be more of an investor type thing because after she did some research and she had people come into the home and give her estimates on what it was going to cost to bring this home up to living standards, it was about an approximate $40,000, mind you, on top of what her mortgage is. And of course, she can't do a refinance or anything because she can't pull any equity out because there is no equity in the home because once an appraiser for the bank comes out for the equity to get equity out of the home, they're going to appraise that house at what its true value was, which is like a third of what she's paying on the mortgage. So that $40,000 would have had to come out of her pocket.
That's crazy.
And that was just an approximate. That's not... Because once they start going in and they start seeing more and more damage and more stuff, that price can go from 40 up.
Yeah. So remember in the beginning when she received a disclosure from the seller said everything was good except for some water standing in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Moving into the house, they find black mold everywhere.
Yes.
I'm talking everywhere. They painted the walls, redid the edging on the bottom of the walls to cover the mold.
Yes. To make it look
had
like
a wall that was like completely rotted on the inside from the mold and water damage.
Okay, this is gonna show
rotted wood.
This is gonna show my true age, but it made me remember of a movie that I saw back in the 80s. It's called The Money Pit with Tom Hanks, and I don't know if her name is Diane Keaton or Diane something. She played on Cheers, but it was kind of the same thing. And as I'm looking at her video, all I kept thinking about was that movie, The Money Pit, because that home is a money pit.
Yeah,
it's a freaking nightmare. It was a nightmare. And here's the thing. She bought one of those test kits for mold. And she said as soon as she opened it and put it out, it tested positive. So that means there was growing mold in the air. So there's not just mold in the walls. It's in the air. They're breathing this. They're living this. And that's when she starts talking about her 2 cats, which I felt so bad for her.
I know. I was
these cats that she had for so long until she moved into this home, and they died because of the mold.
Yeah,
because you know what mold does to an animal. They're
even though they're to animals and people, but even so, they're more sensitive. Yeah, it was truly.
It's hard.
Horrific.
It's
like I can't imagine.
It's a nightmare.
That's why I'm like, imagine her being in this home with this flooding. And then on top of the flooding, then she loses her cats. It's like, yo, I would have been a crazy person. Yeah. I would have been a...
That's why she couldn't hold back and she had to do this video.
A crazy person. I'm glad she did because, you know, she did say at the end that even though this happened to her, sharing the story so that other people don't go through the same thing.
And this is all happening in Arkansas? Yeah. So she's in Arkansas.
I'm assuming Arkansas because the town she was saying, it sounded like Salome. And then when I looked it up, it looked like it was in Arkansas. She did mention that a tornado hit their home. And so Arkansas just made the most sense because this town is very close to Oklahoma, which is where a lot of tornadoes occur. So that's why I said it's probably Arkansas. It looked like Arkansas. So that's what I am guessing. And it's obviously nothing like Florida because... of the way she describes the laws in Arkansas.
Excuse me. So after this, she decides that she needs to take some drastic actions. And not sure if this is the right order, but I think she called her bank and let them know. Then the bank said there's really nothing they can do about the loan because she owes that money. So
she called the bank to see, I guess, if they could try to get it fixed.
Right.
Like get the issues fixed. Although the first people she tried to contact was the seller. Okay, because after the flooding happened, she tried to reach out to the seller. It's like, hey, the house is flooding. Like, what the heck?
What were you guys doing to stop this?
Right? And the seller was not responding to them.
Of course not.
The seller got what they wanted. They didn't want to have anything to do with it anymore.
Okay, let me just clear this. And I don't care what happens to your home. I don't care what you're going through in your home. When you purchase a home, the day of closing, that's it. The seller is done with you. They don't need to respond to your texts. They don't need to respond to your phone calls. And now I know in this issue, she was like, oh my gosh, like what the heck? She just needed to know what did they do when this was happening to them. That's all she needed to know. But again, they're not obligated to speak to you at all. By law, if you're reaching out to them constantly, that can be considered harassment. Because once the deal is done, the deal is done. So the next thing that she should have done was reach out to a lawyer, which she did.
Yes, she reached out to a lawyer, and the lawyer said obviously that she had a case. Because the main thing that gave her a case was the sunken foundation in the home. A sunken foundation is not something that happens overnight. This was like years and years and years in the making.
Something that an inspector should have known.
Correct. So the lawyer was like, well, with this, we definitely have a case because they literally point blank put on the documents there were no issues with foundation, with anything, and no issues with flooding. And it was clear and evident after pulling up carpets and things like that, that this flooding has been an issue for a long time. And it was all just being covered up because of things that were rotten, because of like marks and stuff that they found on the floor that showed that there had been previous flooding. So just in that, they definitely had a case. Now, I don't know where they're at now. She did do an update, but it didn't really go too much in depth about the legal action that's being taken. So I do know there is some legal action being taken. Now, what I'm
I know
curious,
they need to go after her, after that realtor or real estate agent for fraud.
What I'm curious to know is
the inspector.
Yeah, are they taking legal action on the realtor and the inspector
and the seller? They all committed fraud.
All of them.
They all committed fraud.
It's like this big conspiracy among the three of them to commit fraud. Like, how do we know the inspector wasn't paid off some money from selling that house?
Exactly.
And then the realtor obviously made their commission.
He put his license on the line to lie.
Whatever.
So obviously he's an unethical. And I wish she gave names, because she didn't give names, but she should have. Maybe she couldn't give names because maybe it is an illegal
defamation
battle.
Well, that's true. You don't want to give too much.
Yeah, because if they're
legally.
if they're going to court, or if the state is going after them, or the FBI is going after them for fraud.
Yeah, I don't know.
Then she can't give any names. But
if you do mortgage,
I hope they are going after them.
If you're a mortgage professional or whatever, you do loans for a living. I don't know. Maybe I'll reach out to the person. I know a couple of people who do mortgage loans, who are mortgage loan originators, who should know about these laws and stuff like that.
Oh no,
I want to know. Like, to me, this is my opinion. This is a huge case for mortgage fraud, in my opinion.
It is,
because
that's a federal crime.
And she explained this in the video about like going after the inspector. The lawyer talked to her about her going after the inspector for him lying and everything and not catching all this stuff on the home. And he told her that pretty much all she can do is sue him for what she paid for the inspection, which to me is a load of bullshit, because the inspector's appraisal and ultimately what he came out with from his inspection of the home is what allowed this mortgage to go through, is what allowed this home sale to go through, is what pretty much made this whole thing happen. Because had the inspector done a proper inspection and not lied and fabricated things and told her exactly what it was, told her about the foundation, told her about the flooding, told her about everything, would she have purchased that home? No, she wouldn't have. But anybody would have turned and ran the other way.
This is the thing. He's talking about her doing a lawsuit against them. That's all she can do against them. She can get her money back from him against her. Now, everything else is criminal acts. And that's something she can't go after them for. The state has to go after them for.
I think the FBI should be involved in this case.
Because it's a federal crime, I'm pretty sure this is being investigated.
And this can't be the first time. It's being investigated. And I guarantee you, this is not the first time they've done something like this. This is absolutely not the first time.
They're probably going to find a whole line of scams.
Because she said, because the way she described the agent, how the agent talked to her, how she spoke to her, how she like walked around the house and everything. This is not somebody who has done this for the first time.
No.
This is somebody who knows how to take advantage of people, who is manipulative.
Oh, yeah. One of the questions.
Who abuses.
Did you finish high school? Did you get college? Like, she wanted to know their mentality. She wanted to know the mentality of this couple. And like, who cares if they finish school or not?
And the one inspector is her friend.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's a scam. They're scammers. And
it's all scam.
I hope that this, I hope they go after them for... And see all other scams that they've done, because these people need to be behind bars.
Yeah, I'm like, this can't be the first time they've done this.
This is insane. It's insane.
This story just aggravated me so hard. Like, when she was telling her story, I know I felt so compelled to just talk about this, because it drove me insane. Like, first of all, I can imagine being in her shoes, having to deal with that. And then second of all, I hate when people who are professionals in the business and stuff like that, and somebody that people go to trust to do things, and then they turn around and do things like this, and they take advantage of their knowledge of whatever, and they use it to manipulate people, to take advantage of them, and to scam people. And I cannot stand that. I can't stand it.
I can't either.
I hate it so much. Like, words can't describe.
They're using their authority and power.
Lowly, I think, of people who do things like this.
And taking advantage of the people who have no education in this. Not everybody is educated on foundation issues or what red flags they need to look for in the home. Some people have never even fixed a pipe or changed the faucet, or some people don't know any of that. Excuse me. Some people don't know any of that. So you're depending on the experts.
You should be able to.
I don't know. Anyway,
you should be able to.
The lawyer did say we can go after the seller. We can't go after the realtor. Is what he said.
Which I think is BS. I don't know.
Well, the reason that legally, her actions legally towards these three individuals is, number one, a realtor is protected because they can only state what the seller is saying.
Okay, that's fair enough. But the one suggestion was that inspector who overvalued and lied about everything on the home. Correct. So who are they in cahoots with? The seller? They're going to connect them to the seller?
We're talking about her legal actions against them, not law actions that can be put against them, but her legal
She has to go against the seller and the inspector.
And like he said, okay, we can go after the seller, but here's the thing. The seller could turn around, file bankruptcy, and you will probably get nothing. Okay? So this is what she's looking at. Because technically she said there's no lemon laws in her state. So if there's no lemon laws, there's nothing to protect the buyers. Okay? So if there's nothing to protect the buyers, she's limited on how she can go legally against these people. Now, the state can go after them.
Allow me to tell you what.
Mortgage fraud and scam. Yes. Can the owners of the home also be prosecuted for this? Probably. Because all three of them were in cahoots. She can't legally go against them, but the state can go against them for fraud. Because they were all, so they can be prosecuted. It's just that in her legal actions against them, it's very minimal because the lemon law is not in all 50 states.
If you don't know what the lemon law is, lemon laws are United States laws that provide a remedy for purchasers of cars and other consumer goods in order to compensate for products that repeatedly fail to meet standards of quality and performance.
Correct.
So it is just a general protection for a consumer.
That is correct. And not all states have this law. I'm glad that, Jersey has that law. Here in Florida, they have the law. And those are the only two states that I know because these are the only two states that I live in. Now, you can, Google lemon laws and what states have them and what states don't. And what state you're in and see, hey, do we have a lemon law? How much is the buyer protected? I'm glad that the lemon law was created and they do need to enforce it and they should have it in all 50 states because even though it always says buyer beware, but the seller has to have some responsibilities because you need to be protected from scams because you can only see the surface. You can't see underneath. It's like when you purchase a car, you drive a car off the lot before the lemon law, you drive a car off the lot and your car just turns off. And then you go back and you're like, hey, my car is no good. Like it needs a whole new motor. You just sold me a car practically for almost what a brand new car would cost. And I need to put it in a new motor. And, the seller you bought it, it's yours. Mm-mm. The lemon law protects you from that. So, certain things, not everything, because you still have to be aware and you still have to make your own inspection. Like when you're buying a used car, take a mechanic, have that mechanic look at it before you purchase it. Take it for a ride. Never purchase a car without cars are almost like a home. You take a home inspector, they inspect your home, they tell you, okay, this is good, this is not good, this is what you need to negotiate, this house is not worth but this. It's the same thing with a car. You get a mechanic, pay him a couple of bucks, take him with you, check out the car, look under the hood, make sure this car is running, make sure that I'm getting my money's worth.
Yeah. Speaking of inspectors, I believe in the story she was told she couldn't walk around with the inspector while he was inspecting the home.
No, she said that when they pulled up, that the inspector was there. He was talking to the family, and she told them that she cannot go and talk to the family or the inspector at that time. Now, why is the inspector talking to the seller is beyond me, because the inspector's not there for the seller.
For the inspector.
The buyer is paying that inspector. So that inspector had no reason to talk to the homeowners whatsoever. The inspector only needed to talk to two people, the realtor and the person he was there for.
And again, this is why another thing that makes it look like a scam.
Because what was he doing there speaking to the homeowners? Because technically a home inspector will sit in the car until the people who's paying him to be there to inspect gets there, whether it's the realtor or
the buyer has to be present during the inspection.
Correct.
The real estate agent is also to be present
after
during
the inspector spoke to the family and then started to walk around, then they were able to go and speak to the inspector. Bullshit. It just pissed me off.
Yeah. And talking to them like, so what are the issues that we're trying to cover up here?
My gosh. I would have been like, excuse me, why are you talking to the homeowners?
Huh?
Because if you need to know anything about this house, that should have came from the realtor. The homeowners should have never even been there, because usually the realtor will tell them the home inspector is coming, the buyers are coming. Is there anywhere you guys can go? Because we need to have the home free for the inspection and the buyers.
It's very rare for the
go out to
dinner,
go out to lunch or something, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if for unseen
I've
reasons,
never shown a home where the seller was present. The seller is usually they just be like, oh, just leave, for a little while. Correct. And then come back or whatever.
Or
give them
they
a
just
heads
stand
up
outside, or
so that they're not in there. The seller shouldn't be in there.
Correct.
When a home is being shown. The seller shouldn't be in there when they're doing the inspection and everything.
I mean, unless of course you have someone who can't leave the home for
that would be like an exception,
or those are the only exceptions.
But they should ask you like, hey,
somebody who's bedbound, wheelchair bound, that's hard
right.
to remove from the home.
And they'll be like, so this is a situation,
Correct.
They can't leave for XYZ or whatever. That's gonna
be okay. But they stay in that room,
and then it'll be like, okay.
But they'll stay in the room and they'll stay out of people's way.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, bullshit. I was like, that is just straight up bullshit.
I'm like,
but as a person who doesn't know, I would have sat there and been like, okay, I guess this is normal. Okay.
Yeah, you don't know any better.
I'm the one paying him, but okay.
You don't know any better.
I would have told her, why can't I? I'm the one paying him. My attitude, my Jersey attitude would have came out like, why? Everything that's told to me, I always end it with a why. I always got in trouble with my parents for that. Yeah. Because I said so. But why? Because I said so. But why?
That's okay. Sometimes I would be at work and they would say, we do this. Why do we do that? I don't know. We just do. Yeah, but why?
I need to know why.
There could be, we could do it better.
So
there's a better way to do it.
I'm getting ready to get out the car.
Why?
Realtor, you can't go talk to the inspector or the home owners. Why? Because you just can't. Why? That would be me.
They should be able to give a reason, though. Like, if you ask them why, they should be able to tell you why.
Exactly.
Let you have your
realtor. I want to know why. Give me a good reason why.
Right? Let you have your realtor, real estate agent tell you can't do something and ask them why, and how they're going to not give you a reason.
Exactly.
If they can't give you a reason, something's wrong.
You don't say, okay. I'm just like, why?
I
never could say, okay. My ending is always why.
Right. If somebody asks me a question, whatever the question may be, or I tell them something and they go, oh, why? Then I'm just going to explain to you why.
Exactly.
And if I can't explain to you why, then I will find the answer for you so I can tell you why something is done a certain way. But you should never just...
What she's going to say,
I don't
because
know.
I said so.
I feel like, right? You just can't take people's word for it sometimes, especially when it comes to... Right?
That's your money.
It is your... That's what I was going to say.
That is your money.
Buying a home is one of the biggest financial investments you will ever make in your entire life. And you're just going to take somebody else's word for it?
No.
Absolutely not. This is your money.
You
have
everything.
every right to ask as many questions as you want.
Exactly.
I'll tell you why, because if your real estate agent or your realtor is getting frustrated with you, find a new real estate agent or a new realtor.
Exactly.
Because if somebody's coming at me with 100 questions, I'm going to answer your 100 questions, and then I'll ask you if you have 101.
Exactly. Or do you have another 100 questions?
You have every right to ask every question that you need to ask.
If you ask me a question as a professional, if I don't have that answer for you, I'm going to tell you, listen, that's a good question. I don't have that answer for you, but I'm going to make sure that I try to find that answer. Let me see if that's something that I could pull up on my phone. Let me see if that's something that I could do research in. Let me call the office of the broker and see if I can get that question answered for you. But I'm going to do everything I can to answer your questions. And now, if I'm asking questions as a buyer and you can't answer me, or you just say, well, you can't go with, never say okay. Always ask why.
Why?
And if that person is uncomfortable, like Sam said, bye.
I'll find someone who will answer my questions.
Something.
Exactly.
When somebody is uncomfortable with a question that you ask, something's up. Plain and simple. Right. Something is up. Whether it's your spouse, your child.
Every question should be answered.
Every question should be answered, and you should not be annoyed by a question, because if you're annoyed, then you're hiding something, or you just don't want to answer the truth.
Yeah. It's a huge deal.
I am a why person.
It is a huge financial investment that you're making that needs to be taken seriously, that you need somebody who's looking out for you for your hugest, probably maybe one of the biggest financial investment. I think there was a statistic on like how many times is somebody going to buy a home in their life, and the average was like 2 or 3 homes or something like that.
Some just one.
Some people, a lot of people just one.
They die.
Yeah, they're looking for their forever home. But majority of people, most people will buy maybe like two homes, maybe 3. So this is like a huge moment in your life. Buying a home,
correct,
is huge. It's a huge financial investment. A lot goes into it. We're talking about some place that you're going to be possibly exactly for the rest of your life. Yeah. You need somebody that you can trust that's going to guide you through that process. And you should be able to ask that person as many questions as you need so that you feel comfortable with the process. And if that person doesn't feel comfortable answering those questions, like she said, that would be a red flag to me, and I would be looking for somebody else.
Correct. Now, also for first-time buyers, when you do reach out and you're looking for that agent, whether they're a realtor or a real estate agent, excuse me, some agents are going to give you a contract. That doesn't mean you owe them any money. That's just a contract stating that they're going to be helping you through the whole process. And pretty much you can't be speaking to another realtor or real estate agent while they're your agent. Okay. And if you do speak to someone else, they're still getting credit for whatever you do until you fire them and break that contract.
A good agent will have you sign a contract.
Correct.
It's usually a transaction broker contract. I know that's the verbiage we use in Florida. Don't know if it differs by state, but typically you'll see like a transaction broker contract or single agent contract. It's a contract that after you speak to the agent, kind of get to know them, and they talk to you, what are you looking for? What kind of homes are we looking for? And you're officially hiring that person to work for you. They're going to give you a transaction broker or single agent or pretty much a contract that just says that they are going to be representing you. It tells you what their duties are to you. So, like looking out for your best interests and all that stuff, all of their obligations to you are going to be listed on this contract. So it's just a good thing in general to have, because it's listing out what are my duties to you and any duties that you have throughout this buying process as well. So it's just a good idea to know what to expect out of the relationship with a real estate agent. A good real estate agent will give you a contract. Also because you are hiring somebody, so this person is doing work for you.
Exactly.
Most people don't want to do work for free, so an agent is going to want to have a contract with you, just saying, hey, you're working with me, so I'm going to get you whatever it is, or if you're interested in something, you bring it to your agent. Blah,
That's
blah,
another
blah.
thing.
And the contract is not like life binding or anything.
No, it's
at
not.
any point, if you feel that your agent is not meeting or what you feel fulfilling your needs or anything, you can always at any point just break that contract. So,
another thing, what was I gonna say? Oh, secondly, when you do reach out to real estate agents or realtors, they're going to ask you, are you working with another realtor? Because they should ask you. And if they don't, I don't know. Maybe because they're new,
it's a good
or
common,
they forget to ask you.
It's a good
common practice
that you should be asking someone, are you working for an agent? Because you're not trying to steal anybody else's client, and you're not trying to do work for free for somebody else who already has a contract with you. Because if you already are working, you've signed with a realtor, and then now you're talking to another realtor, and then that realtor gets you the home. It's unethical to do that. Then it's just like you're stealing commission, or somebody's working for free. So
not just that. Here's the thing, and I understand the contract protects.
I mean, it's still
realtor,
a job,
but it protects like both. It's like, okay, let's say, and I'm not a real estate agent or a realtor. I do not have a license. This is just
opinion.
No, it's not an opinion. This is just an example. Let's say Mr. Smith hires Sam as their real estate agent, signs the contract with her. And while Sam's over here looking at homes, Mr. Smith is over on Zillow and whatever website there is where they have homes for sale. And he sees a home and he's like, oh, that's a nice home. He tries to reach out to Sam. Sam couldn't get to her phone. He calls the realtor that's listed underneath the home that's for sale. Now it rings to me. Hi, this is Mimi. Oh yeah, I was looking at that house. Okay, that house just sold. But I didn't ask him, hey, are you signed with another agent? No, I start looking at homes and he's telling me, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. And I say, well, hey, I can go ahead and look at them. Then now I'm getting his email and his phone number. Now I'm up here. I'm looking at homes. I send him a couple of homes. He likes 3 of them that are available. And then he reaches out to his realtor.
Yeah, a person just
then
did
the
work for
realtor
free.
comes in and she's like, oh, sure, I can put in that bid for you. That realtor didn't do anything. Now who's getting paid? It ain't going to be me because I didn't personally list those homes. Those were just homes in our database. So that's why, it's also important as an agent to ask, are you already signed up with another agent? Because I'm not going to do the work for them and they get paid and I don't. So that contract, kind of protects the agent, but that at the same time, as an agent, make sure that you're asking those questions to the buyers. Another thing, agents today will not show you a home unless you have a pre-approval for a mortgage. So always go out, get the feel, get a pre-approval. What they do is the bank will ask you for all these credentials. They'll check your credit score, your bank statements, your employment. If you're granted, they'll tell you how much and up to what you're going to be granted for in a mortgage.
Typically, in a pre-approval, you're not required to show any actual information to back up. You're just giving them, they'll ask you like, what is your gross income? Correct. They'll ask you any expenses that you pay monthly and your credit score. And they'll give you a pre-approval based off of the information that you provide. So it's very important that when you are providing the information that you are not inflating anything as far as your income, that you're not lying and saying you make more than you do so that you'll be approved for more, because that pre-approval, when you put in an offer, So, you know what? Why don't we break down really quick, I guess, the steps for a first-time home buyer buying a home. So you're excited. You want to get your first home. You're making enough money and you want to go buy your first house. Awesome. So now you are looking at homes. Most people make the mistake of looking at homes first, not knowing what they can afford and just kind of guessing what they'll be able to afford in a home. I recommend you not do this because you could set yourself up for disappointment if you are looking at things and then you find out that you're not even approved for homes that fit in that criteria. So I would say step 1, if you're listening to this podcast, find yourself an agent. And then the agent usually can recommend to you a couple of different mortgage loan originators. They might be able to talk to you about that. And I know when I was actively practicing, I was able to, give a mortgage loan originator to people to like look at who the mortgage loan originator actually pulls across various different like banks and stuff
Correct.
like that. So they are an originator. That means they're just like originating a loan that fits with what you're looking for.
Correct.
So
they're reaching out to different banks.
Yeah. So you're looking for an MLO, mortgage loan originator. When you meet the mortgage loan originator, they'll ask you all that information. They'll put all their information to the system based off of what you're looking for in a home. They'll talk to you about all the different types of loans available, which ones are best for you. And then based off of that, they will pretty much run through the system and see what different banks or what different loan offers are out there for you. And then they will match you with a loan that best fits your interests.
Correct.
So once they do that, then you will get a pre-approval letter from whatever places you've been pre-approved for a loan. So let's say you put in all your information, they look across the board and they find out that you qualify for like, I'm just going to throw it out there, 200,000, like FHA 200,000 loan or whatever. And you've got your thing saying that, hey, you're approved for this FHA loan from ABC Bank. And they give you a letter. That letter you are going to send to your real estate agent. Your real estate agent will hold on to that pre-approval letter.
Because they need that for offers.
Yes. That will tell them, okay, so we're looking at homes within $200,000 or less range for you. So then the real estate agent will go ahead. They'll look for homes, find homes that match you. You'll go out and probably see quite a few homes before you end up finding the one that you want.
Which is very tiring, let me tell you.
I know. Probably the most tiring process is looking for the actual home. And then, the whole paperwork and everything. And then, yeah. So you find the home. It's perfect. It's in your budget. And you want to put in an offer. So your agent goes, great. They're going to send you all the paperwork. That's where we talked a little bit about the as is sales contract. So that's when you're going to want to read through the papers, see everything, the breakdowns of the house, the disclosures, everything should be included in there so that you can be made aware of maybe if there's an issue with the roof or something like that. That's when you'll read the contract and you'll see all of that detailed there. Well as
don't forget, if they do accept your offer, when you go to put in an offer, you do have to give a good faith check.
So that's included in this contract. The contract will tell you how much is going to be required for you to provide as an escrow. So escrow, also called like a good faith or earnest money deposit, is basically like based off of a percentage of the house. Usually it's like 5% or something like that. You'll pay sometimes 1%, 2%. It all depends. It'll be in the as is contract. When you sign
just a good faith.
Yeah. So when you sign the contract, it'll say, and you're providing like $3,000 in earnest money deposit. That's a deposit that goes in that just shows the seller that you are a serious buyer on the home. Now,
it puts a hold on the sale.
Correct. So that is submitted to the seller. Now, let's say everything goes well. The seller looks at it. They like your offer and they go ahead and accept your offer. And now you are officially tied into purchasing this home. So depending on what date you put on that as is contract, I know typically they try to do 15 to 30 days for closing.
Correct.
15 is a really short period of time, but I would say average is probably 30. 30 days is pretty average for closing on a home.
Yeah, because the bank is going to be requiring everything from you. Your whole life story.
And in the as is contract, the closing date will be on there, so you'll be made aware. So let's say it's like August 12th or whatever, and your closing date is September 15th or something like that. That sounds about right. Let's say September 15th is your closing date. As soon as the buyer accepts that, you are now officially, seller. As soon as the seller accepts that, you're officially in a contract to purchase a home.
Locked in at that price of the home.
That means that you have until September 15th to get an inspector out there to inspect the home, to get your home inspection. With that, we talked about the inspection and how they go ahead and appraise your home.
Get your own.
Yeah, the appraisal.
Do your own homework and get your own appraiser.
The appraisal will help solidify your mortgage, as well as you providing all of the documentation. That means like usually your past 2 or 3 pay stubs, tax returns, all that kind of stuff. So you have this time period to close on your loan with the bank, meaning that everything should pretty much be the same as when you've provided the information.
Correct.
So
they're just verifying.
Yeah. This is also why I tell clients, if you are in the process of applying for a loan or anything, when you're in the process of buying your home, don't make any big purchases or anything like that can impact your credit score.
Like a new car or anything
because
like
the last thing you want is you got a new car before you bought your home and now your credit score just went down 30 points and all of a sudden you don't qualify for the loan anymore.
Yeah.
Because guess what? That earnest money deposit doesn't go back to you if that sale doesn't go through. That stays with the seller.
Yes.
So
the only time that money goes back to you if the seller backs out.
Yeah. So within this time period, you are closing your loan. You are getting the home inspected. And then before you close, you should be doing a final walkthrough, typically like in the last week before you close. Do a final walkthrough of the property to make sure that everything is still up to par for you to close. Now, if everything is not set in your final walkthrough, this is where a lot of back and forth is probably going to happen with the seller. Like, hey, this needs to be done. This needs to be done. This needs to be done. The closing date might change if certain things don't happen the way they're supposed to. So let's say, you know, everything goes well and the walkthrough is perfect. Home is still good. You know, everything is the way they said it would be. And then now you're going to go to closing, sign all your papers. And then from the time that you sign your name on that last dotted line, that home is yours. Keys are yours and the home is yours to move into.
Correct. Now, the thing about when you're going for the mortgage loan, there's two ways of doing it. There's the conventional way and there's the FHA way. By the way,
I don't want to talk about loans, but the earnest money deposit that you paid in the offer that is applied to your closing.
Yes.
Just so that you're aware. So if you're paying like $5,000 earnest money deposit, then when you're in closing, that $5,000 should be on your closing paperwork. So let's say that you bought the house for $195,000, you paid a $5,000 earnest deposit. When you go to closing, you should have a remaining balance of $190,000.
Correct. Sometimes you'll get back that money because if you bought the house where you had no closing costs, where the seller took over all closing costs, which you can do
sometimes.
If you're telling your realtor you want the seller to do all closing costs, we did it. We ended up getting our earnest money back because we had no closing costs at the time of closing. So we got our earnest money back. And it is important because when you're looking at loans, when you go into an FHA loan, there are certain requirements that need to be met by the home for FHA loan to be approved. So you're going to get a cheaper mortgage rate. The thing is that you'll be locked in 1 to 2 years with FHA before you can refinance or sell the home. That's the only downside if you're not planning to stay in there for the term. Now, if you're planning to stay in there, if this is your home, I recommend if you can get an FHA loan, do it because they have their own inspector come out and inspect the home. And if she would have had an FHA loan, their inspector would have came out and inspected the home because there's certain standards before they approve a loan.
Like they don't do fixer-uppers.
No, they don't.
FHA is only move-in ready homes. They don't want a fixer-upper. That's what a 401k and all those other loans are for.
And that's why before they approve your loan, they send out the inspector, their own inspector. So you have to pay for yours and they send theirs. So had they went through an FHA, believe me, their inspector would have been like, that home is not worth it.
Yeah, they would have been like, heck
and that bank would have came back and said, we cannot approve the loan for that home. You need to go find another home. And I'm telling you from experience because I have had 2 FHA loans. FHA loans are not just for first time home buyers. You can use FHA loans pretty much anytime you buy a home. We used it twice. Well, we used it twice, but the second time we used it, we had to go conventional because the home we bought here in Florida was a fixer upper and they denied it. They sent out their inspector and they were like, this is a fixer upper. We can't grant you that. So we went conventional. But yeah, FHA will also protect you when you're looking at the home. So that's a good way to go too.
The 2 best loans are VA loans, which if you could get a VA loan, that's like the best loan you can get. No down payment, really low interest rates.
But you don't have to have
VA loans are the best. And then after that, I can't forget what it's called. We purchased
2 homes without putting 1 penny at closing.
The other one is a USDA loan. USDA stands for, I believe, United States Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, it's a loan. Big lands and farms.
It is a loan that you can get for any area that is within like the rural guidelines.
Yes.
There's a website you can go to, USDA. I think it's USDA.gov, but you could just Google USDA loans and it'll take you to the website. And if you put in like a specific house, it'll tell you if that house qualifies for a USDA loan.
Yes.
It's a really good loan because I believe it does not require any down payment. And also you
get like the lowest interest rates too.
And it's very, very forgiving as far as credit scores.
Yes.
Like you don't have to have a really good credit score to qualify for a USDA loan.
Right.
And they are pretty and they're pretty much designed for like lower income.
Yeah. And let me tell you, this is not something that is advertised out there. It is not advertised. When you're looking at homes and you're looking at loans and stuff, nobody ever talks to you about the USDA
loan. Yeah.
All they talk to you about is conventional and FHA.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because those are the biggest money makers.
Yes. They don't want to talk to you about how you can save money and practically move in for nothing into a home. And practically, like,
right.
practically pay almost barely probably less than what you would pay for rent.
My ideal situation would be to move into a home that I don't have to pay a down payment for.
Well, I mean, honestly
personally,
say,
I don't know. If I could pay full up cash, I would, but
no,
most
I can
people are not in
honestly
that
say,
situation.
This home that we live in now was the very first home that we had to pay closing costs. And it was because
it's brand new.
Who
else is going to take on the closing cost?
Well, actually,
some
a lot
building
of
companies
do.
Some do.
Some of them do. And I will tell you that we were supposed to put, I think it was like $20,000 to closing. But the builders took off a percentage. So we ended up paying like close to $16,000 at closing, which was still a good deal because we watched this home being built from dirt from the ground up. Yeah. It was just exciting to go through it, to see the process of picking a lot, picking everything for inside the home, picking which kind of home you want to put on the lot. It was a cool experience. I mean, and it's not as expensive as a lot of people think it is. It's just that a lot of builders will not pay towards closing costs.
Oh, yeah.
You do have to have your percentage for closing.
I'm kind of glad you brought that up because first-time home buyers, how many first-time home buyers out there don't maybe want to buy a new home?
Right.
First-time home buyers, let's also share one more thing with you. Or if you're a first-time brand new home buyer, you probably don't know this. So everybody knows that when you own a home, you pay taxes at the end of the year based off of the home value. Usually it's enrolled into your mortgage that you pay it with your mortgage. I know yours is enrolled into the mortgage. So instead of paying like the tax at the end of the year, it's usually just enrolled into your mortgage.
Yes. It's all in escrow.
Here's a very important thing to note because it can make a huge difference the second year living in your brand new house.
Oh, yes.
So the first year that you buy your home, because there is no home on the land, the assessed value that is being taxed is only going to fall on the land. So let's say you have like a 1 acre plot of land. You're going to build a home on it. That 1 acre of land is currently valued at, let's say, like $40,000 for an acre of land. So the taxes that are going to be enrolled into your mortgage are going to be based off of the taxes on the land because there's no home yet. After you build the home and you live in it for a year, that next year, the assessed value is now going to be based off of your home and the land.
Correct.
So let's say you went all out and you built yourself a $350,000 home on this land. And, you know, your mortgage was pretty low because you're not paying those high taxes yet. Well, guess what? When the next year comes around and you see your mortgage go up $300, it's because you're now paying taxes based off of the assessed value of the home and the land. So if you're buying a new home, please factor into your decision making, the taxes and how that is going to affect your mortgage monthly payments.
We couldn't really get a value of what the taxes were going to be because this was a whole new development community.
Yeah, so you have to do like a rough estimate.
Yeah, so everybody's taxes were still adjusting as years went through. I think it was last year they built the very last house on the development. I think it was last year, if I'm not mistaken. So once they built that very last plot, everything is done. All houses are built in this community. There's no empty plots. There's no empty land. There's nothing empty. It's all built. So from now on, the taxes can still increase, but you know what you're looking at in taxes. Yeah. For where we live is almost $4,000 a year for taxes.
The difference though is that the first year there is such a drastic change from year 1 to year 2 of a brand new home. Oh yes, because you're adding hundreds of thousands of dollars of value onto land versus year over year it could change by like 10 or 15 and that's a much smaller increment than 200 and something thousand dollars.
When we moved in, our mortgage payment was about $16,000.
16,000?
I'm sorry, 1,600.
We live in a mansion, guys.
1,600 for the mortgage, right? So the following year,
yeah,
they sent a letter. Oh, your mortgage payment is going up to 1,700. And we're like, what? Why? And then they explained the assessment. That's where we learned. Yes, we didn't know this. This is, there's a couple of things
we weren't real estate agents yet.
And not only that, we weren't aware of that when you're buying a brand new home.
Yeah.
So
why didn't the builder tell you?
The second year, they don't tell you any of this.
This is another thing I wonder, because as somebody who, as a professional and everything, when I'm dealing with things or like helping people, I feel I'm a very thorough person. So I feel like if there's anything that, is not common knowledge, you should tell it to somebody.
Exactly.
So many people just like withhold information or just don't
Unless
share.
You don't ask.
Yeah. It's like, don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah. So then the second year that we were here, so we moved in 2017. In 2018 was the first bump, and then in last year 2019 we had another bump. So now we're paying close to $2,000 a month for our mortgage, plus not just the mortgage, because just the mortgage alone, I think it was like 1,100. That's just the mortgage.
It's everything else,
but with taxes and everything that we had included with the mortgage, because I don't like paying for things separately. If I can have it all enrolled in the mortgage, if I could have had the light, everything all enrolled in the mortgage, that's how I prefer it. So I have the insurance, I have the taxes, everything is enrolled with the mortgage, which you can ask them to do. But if you don't tell them before closing, they can't have all that prepared for you. The mortgage company is the one who puts it all together. So if you don't let them know you want it all together to be part of your mortgage payment, then they're not going to do it. You're going to have to pay your insurance separately. You're going to have to pay your taxes separately. I have it all enrolled.
Right.
So within 3 years, we went from 1,600 to 2,000.
Yes, that's a big difference.
A big bump. And that's just because of the taxes.
Yeah, that's a big bump.
Because my insurance for the house is still the same price,
and you have a homestead exemption, correct?
Correct.
I think the homestead exemption is up to $50,000,
something like that.
Yeah.
So that's another thing you need to know when you're purchasing a brand new home that you're having built on the land.
Yeah. This has been a long discussion.
Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about when it comes to real estate, knowing what to look for, about understanding the home buying process, being a first time home buyer, all that stuff. So.
I mean, could you imagine if we couldn't afford that? That would have been like, wow.
That's why a lot of people in new homes end up going into foreclosure,
because they don't know this. They're only making their payments like, I could definitely make those payments. That's nothing. That's crazy. Next thing you know, you have a foreclosure going on down the street, or someone put up their home for sale, or they had to rent it out so they won't go into foreclosure or short sales. And, it starts happening because lack of education.
Yep.
Because lack of someone telling them, hey, these taxes,
this is how it works.
It's just an assessment. Yeah. This is not going to be the taxes you're going to be paying until the land has value.
Exactly.
The land does not have value for the first year. It needs a whole year to have value for the county and state to then put taxes on it. And that takes a whole year.
Takes a while.
And the next year, you don't know.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like, what the hell? Why is my mortgage costing this much money? It was not this expensive. Wait a minute.
You're not supposed to be raising my mortgage. What is wrong with you guys? This is a locked mortgage. And they're like, well, the mortgage didn't change. The taxes did. And I was like, oh,
it's crazy.
Okay. Which is another thing. If you do buy a home and you can put money in your escrow, to cover those tax assessments. Because if you put more money into your escrow, when the year is over and your taxes go up, they'll just take it out of your escrow.
Yeah. This was just supposed to be talking about the nightmare house and like the home like things to look for, and you just keep adding all these like things that are like way off.
There's a lot of stuff that
there is a lot of stuff about
purchasing a home. Yeah, that's why a lot of people rather just rent and not have to go through all this. But I mean, and I can completely understand. But there's nothing more satisfying than owning your own home. And all the payments that you make is going towards the purchase of your home and not towards the purchase of someone else's home.
And that is an opinion.
And exactly, that is an opinion.
Yeah.
I mean,
some people don't care.
Not everybody could be a homeowner, but that's an opinion.
Yeah. There's a lot that comes to buying a new home. It's not,
of course,
it's not.
You don't have nobody coming to change your light bulbs.
Yeah, it's not necessarily as
or fix your toilet,
rose-colored glasses as people like to make it.
Or
seem.
Hey, my tub is clogging. Y'all need to come and fix this. No, you have to do all that yourself.
And then you have all these people telling nightmare stories about all the stuff they didn't know about owning a home, and then they're going online and talking about all this stuff, and then I'm just like. I blame the people the agents and stuff that aren't talking to them about these things, because they're so interested in just making the sale that they want to hype you up into it, not tell you things so that, you get all into, yes, I'm going to be buying this home and all this stuff. And then you're wearing these rose colored glasses and the full picture is not being painted for you. I don't believe in that. Correct. I don't believe in selling out just to make some money at the expense of other people. I believe in being transparent, about being honest about things, about having people see the full picture before they jump into something like this. Because it's not like I'm just trying to get you to get an internet subscription. This is not an internet subscription. It's not a Netflix subscription. It's not buying an outfit or even buying a car, which buying a car is a big purchase too, but this is like way past all of that. So I don't know, maybe that's just my opinion. Some people think, if they didn't bother to look at it, it's not my fault, No, but that's not,
I don't know.
That's not what I believe.
Everyone has a responsibility. The buyer has to be aware. The seller has to be morally responsible. It's
yeah.
I don't know.
So, yeah, that was a very long, ranty episode talking about this topic. If you enjoyed this, hopefully you learned something.
Well, before we go, she did end the video and she has other follow-ups. I know the last follow-up we saw, she's not in the home and her home is up for a short sale. So that at least she can walk away and be able to purchase a home in 3 years or more. Whereas she didn't have to go through foreclosure or, make it be worse, because then the mortgage company can go after her for legal costs and all. So that's how it ended. We don't know. And she doesn't say whatever happened to the realtor or the home inspector or the sellers.
Yeah.
Because probably the lawyer told her not to talk about it because it's probably a case that's pending. And hopefully I will hear something saying that they were being prosecuted.
Yeah.
For
She's
fraud.
still in the legal process from what she said. So legal action still being pursued. We don't know what the end result is going to be, but I guess we will see. I'll keep an eye out and see if she posts any more updates, or maybe if she has posted an update, I just haven't seen it yet. But yeah, I did say what her channel was at the beginning of the video. It was Kyla, KYELUH, and like I said, I'm just going to link the video in our description if you want to go and check it out for yourself and listen to the story. Hopefully this was somewhat educational to you, that you learned something. You can pass it on to other people. We are available on all podcasting, pretty much all podcasting platforms at this point. Yay! Except for Pandora, but I don't know how many people listen to podcasts on Pandora. Other than that, we're everywhere else, and we're also on YouTube as well, so you can follow us on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We post every Wednesday and Friday. Every Wednesday we do a Bachelor recap. Every Friday we talk about something else.
Correct.
We have lots of different backgrounds, experiences, all types of different jobs that we've done, and all of us are pretty into the whole real estate business and things like that. So stuff like this interests us. If you enjoyed this podcast or you want to hear us talk about maybe other things involving real estate or anything else that you kind of want to hear our thoughts on or maybe our knowledge on, you can leave us a comment or anything, leave us a message. Let us know what you want us to talk about next.
Also, if you have a home that you would like to sell before it goes into foreclosure or before you put it up for a short sale, or if you have a home you just want to get out of, we do buy homes. We are investors. Also on Facebook, we're going to put up the link on where you can go to the website and all the information is there. We do work with a team of investors to purchase your homes if you need to get out of your home. So please go to our Facebook and we'll also have a link there. If you're selling your home, we are also affiliated. My husband is a realtor. We're also going to have his information on the Facebook. So if you want to purchase a home, the same thing.
Or if you want to buy a home or sell a home.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
If you want, purchase
a
home.
If
you want to purchase a home, sell a home.
Yeah, purchase, sell, whatever.
If you want to sell a home that you want to get out of, we are investors. Or if you want him to sell your home for you under his real estate, well, he's a realtor, so under his realtor broker.
But just so you know, this is only in the Central Florida area.
Correct. He is in the Central Florida area. He can put up your home for sale. He can talk to you about whatever realtors do when they ask you questions.
Whatever realtors do.
I don't know. I don't know.
With that being said,
but we do also invest in fixer-uppers. So if you need to get out of your home, no matter what condition it is in, please let us know. And we can go and evaluate and see what we can do for you.
And that wraps up. And that wraps up another episode. This one was a very long one. Gosh, there was just so much to say. So thank you so much for listening. We hope that you are staying safe, happy, and healthy and manifesting everything that you desire out of life.
Amen.